Well, today actually in downtown Amherst at the moment. Where I'm getting the truck loaded up with all the stuff I need here for today. We've got a busy day on. We're doing some meetings in Napan, and then off to the tour of the construction or the updated construction of the new fire hall in Spring Hill, and then we're at Cumberland North Academy to do some stuff regarding the Earth Day celebrations and events that's going on there tomorrow, and then we're back in Amherst for 5:30 for the Cumberland County Chamber of Commerce AGM. So a very busy day.
And who said it's not a full-time job?
I will only chuckle at that, Bill.
Some of the topics on the discussion yesterday and for us today, we actually talked about last week. And the reason for that, of course, is last week you had a committee of the whole meeting at which you deal with a whole lot of issues and deep, detailed stuff, and you put off making any decisions until an actual council meeting. So when we talk about things like a paving contract, $1.12 million, paving some streets in Springhill and Parrsboro, we know that that was coming, but yesterday you made it official. So those streets are going to be paved. Apparently, you're responsible for about 70 kilometers of roads in those two former towns that were presented to you as a kind of birthday present or Christmas gift a few years back by the province.
Yes, and like every year, we try and get that one out as early as we can. We had sort of pre-approved the capital spending on that item, or to put the RFP out early, because we found very quickly, like a few years ago when we first started, we were like, if you're late getting your capital paving tenders out, then A, you pay more, and B, you have to wait a lot longer, and sometimes it's late in the fall before the work gets done and all of that, and it's just it's best practice to try and get them out early and get out at the front. And and this one was good. It allows us to do stay at a level, and this is sort of where our focus is, to do enough each year annually, so that we make the assumption that most of these streets will need to be repaved. At the 20-year mark, between 20 and 25 years. So the rotation is such that we don't get caught at some point in time where we suddenly have to do a massive amount of paving. If we do a certain amount each year, we will stay caught up and stay current with the paving program.
And, of course, that's just logistics you're talking about there. But as a news guy and as a taxpayer of the county who's not a member or a resident of either of the former towns, there are people across the county keep thinking, how come Springhill and Parrsboro keep getting all this stuff, all these paving projects and all these building projects, and you're not doing our place? And, there's a certain string attached to Springhill and Parrsboro, and all your press releases that come out about spending always make the point, the former towns of. And that they've still got a special status after all this time, don't they?
They do, to a degree. It's getting less and less as time goes on. You still have to, refer to them as Springhill or Parrsboro, because it's the same as, Tidnish or Trumanville. Those place names never change. It's just that we knock down the borders and boundaries surrounding those two former towns. And, it's an all Cumberland thing. But the other reality of it is that a lot of our infrastructure and capital requirements, a large part of them, except for some sewer and water systems, are based in those two former towns. So that's, again, like, for example, Pugwash. We don't own any of the streets in Pugwash. The province of Nova Scotia owns them. So they're responsible for paving them, which quite often I get questions from people, how come you're not paving the street in Pugwash? Well, it's because we don't own it. And but it does. It always seems as though a large part of the capital budget is spent in those two aforementioned places. And but again, that's where the bulk of the services are too, that are capital related.
And you already answered the question I was leading to, is that very point, is that you don't own the streets in Pugwash. In fact, you don't own the streets in very many places at all throughout the county. And so it's for that reason, when you do own the streets, as you do in what used to be the towns, and you took over the entire towns, You didn't go in and buy them or take them over yourself. They were handed to you. They had nowhere else to go, quite frankly. That makes it very, very different. But not only is that where the services are, that's where the bulk of the residences are as well. So we have to keep in mind, Springhill is a larger community than Pugwash, and Parrsboro is a larger community than any other place you want to name in the county. And so, where the people are, where the services are, that's where the costs are.
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned you're going to look at the new fire hall in Springhill and get an update on that. Speaking of which, you did, as you said last week on this program, you did approve a $286,000 expenditure for the fire service, buying them their SCBAs, that's their self-contained breathing apparatus, 25 sets of that and 50 air cylinders. That's a check for $286,000. That's been approved. The order is made. You must be getting a pat on the back from the fire service these days.
Yeah, I don't, listen, we're just trying to support them and do the best we can with the money that we have. There's around $9 million in the capital budget this year for the fire, set aside for the fire service and various things that are going on there, which is purchase of equipment, purchase of apparatus, setting some money aside for future stuff and whatever. I would, at this point in time, I know a number of people that are in the fire service as well. Obviously, when I'm out and about in the community, they speak to me and say thank you, for your efforts in all that you're trying to do for us. So I think that there is a certain level of appreciation there that and they get what we're trying to do, to get this to where it needs to go. And it's a work in progress. It'll take another few years before we get where we really need to be, but we're on it and we'll get it done. I'm very confident.
And speaking of other commitments and so on, you've renewed a commitment to something that perhaps a lot of people don't know about, the Nova Scotia Community College Foundation Gift Agreement. It's a 4-year agreement, in fact, and you're providing $20,000 a year to this foundation. For those who don't know what is the gift agreement?
Well, that's for NSCC students, and it's bursaries and assistance for students enrolled in various programs at the Nova Scotia Community College in Springhill. And it's a great agreement. It's one that we've been doing for years now. We renewed it. The only change we made this time was that we renewed it for 4 years instead of 5. And all we were trying to do there was line it up with the current council and the current administration. And then, obviously, after the next election, that will come up for renewal again, quite likely. And the next group will decide, if they want to continue or renew it or change it or add to it or whatever. So I find that some of the stuff, it's best not to carry it past our current mandate because the next group might think differently, about what we did and how we did it. And so it gives them an opportunity to either change it or improve it or whatever. So, but this is a great program that directly benefits people in the community college system. Anyway, we're very happy to be able to get that renewed.
Now, safe to be sure that it's a funding to help 10 to 20 students every year financially, and one would assume that you're wanting to help students of Cumberland County at the community college.
Yes, absolutely. But that's the whole focus. I don't know if there's an absolute wording in there that says that they must be Cumberland County students. If I don't have it right here in front of me, Bill, to very quickly make a determination on that. But I do know that certainly is the focus of it. Much like other agreements we have with other organizations to support things that are going on around the county. Our hope is always that, that it will come back to, Cumberland County based people, or perhaps in the other offside of that is that it will help retain workers here in Cumberland County that in identified areas that we need workers in, right?
Yeah, and of course, if they're not residents of the county attending the community college, they are residents when they attend. So they may have come in for school programs from outside the county, but once they're here, there's always a chance that they can be trained and want to stay here. So either way you cut it, it works. And apparently over the period of time that this has gone out there, there's $1,000 award to part-time students and $2,000 for full-time students, arguably, I guess, with a program to determine they actually need it, that 67 students have received this award over the years. So 67 people have been helped by this gift.
Yes, and it's very important. It's important work to be able to help to help the students, help the NSCC Foundation, and you know what? At the end of the day, the people that benefit from this, if and when they decide to stay in Cumberland County and begin their working careers here, if 1 out of every 10 were to do that, it would be a very good thing. I just think it's a great help, and it's a great stepping stone for some of these students that otherwise, perhaps might not be able to take these courses or upgrade their education or whatever. And so we have to give them every opportunity to succeed and do well. And I think this is a great program. I really do.
And here's another item that came up yesterday that you approved, and it kind of crept in quietly in the background, you might say, but you extended the contract of Greg Harrett, the Chief Administrative Officer for the county, and under normal circumstances, I would just say, well, that to be expected. His current term is up not this year, but next year. And what strikes me as being odd, and maybe there's some reason for it, you've extended the contract by 1 year. One would expect if he's going to hang around, you would kind of extend it for the same period that he was hired on. And I'm wondering, is this kind of indicative of maybe there's a planned departure coming up in 2027?
That's a possibility. That's a ways off at this point. We did a lot of work this year with the getting the budget out in record time, and our CAO has done tremendous work. And I don't think a lot of people don't see what he does every day like I do. I mean, he works early in the morning till late at night, and every day of the week, weekends and whatever. And he's been an extremely knowledgeable and resourceful backup for myself and for council with his vast experience in this type of setting. And initially, the original contract with him was, and it was his plan and his planned retirement and all of that, and so that was the way it was originally talked about in the early going in the previous council. Then recently, he approached us and asked. He said, I've had to sort of rethink on this and looked at it, and I'm really enjoying the work. I'm really enjoying what we're getting done. There's a number of projects that are in the hopper that we want to get started and get finished and all of this. And he said, I can't all be done in the time frame I'm looking, under my current contract. And I, would be more than willing to take a 1-year extension on that. And you know what? We were very pleased that that was the case. It allows us more time to plan for his departure. Much more time. The time frame any other way would have been very tight, and we've been very busy trying to do other things and get stuff looked after. So that's how it works out, and it'll give us a chance to take our time with it and to breathe and to be not rushed in any way, shape, or form. And at the end of the day, who knows what the future will bring? He may decide this time next year that he wants a further extension, or would we like to have one? We'll deal with it as it goes. So, but right now, we have bought ourselves some time with a tremendous person with lots of experience, and that makes life easy for myself and for the council.
You couldn't talk him into 2 or 3, huh?
That was the joke yesterday at council. I mean, it's on the film when I was reading out the thing. One of the councilors blurted out that it should have said April 30th, 2028 or 2029, not 2027. So anyway, it was. Anyway, we had a little chuckle over that, and Mr. Harrett just rolled his eyes, anyway, away we went. So, but it was kind of funny when they said that. So.
Now, at the same time, it caused me to start to rethink the structure of the administrative staff at the county, and I recall that previously, before Greg Harrett came, the chief administrative officer had the title, and there was no other. Lots of support staff. But since Greg Harrett came along, you also have appointed a deputy, a backup, an assistant, if you will, with that title. And does that mean there's kind of an automatic extension or a follow-up plan? Or if he was to leave at the end of 2027, would you look for a new outside or internal or what? And I know that's a huge question to ask with only a minute to go, but...
Well, the whole thing of that is you have to start out a long ways in advance, and 2026 and the spring was not doable for like very, very tight timeline. If you're going to do this, you have to start out about 12 to 18 months ahead. And search. Start your search for candidates, whether it be internally or externally or both. And then you have to decide how long of an overlap potentially there might be, and you have to look at the accrued vacation time and all the kinds of little moving parts there. So, so this setup the way it is now will allow us to do all of that in a timely manner. And anyway, so yeah, it makes it much easier for us. And you know what? It may be something internal in the next go around, and it may be both external and internal. And we may end up in a national search. Who knows where it will go at the end of the day? Which it will be up to individuals to decide what they want to do and when they want to do it and if they want to do it, and we'll see who all expresses an interest. So.